Victoria train station is now being held under the Mental Health Act. 3 people, including a police officer, were stabbed during the attack on New Year's Eve. 2 knives were recovered at the scene and a property is being searched in the Cheetham Hill area of the city. The attack took place at a tram station next to the Manchester Arena, where in May 2017, Salman Abedi blew himself up, killing 23 people, more than half of them were children, as they left the Ariana Grande concert. Former Detective Chief Inspector Peter Kirkham with us now. Hello to you, thanks for joining us. We were hearing from the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester earlier on today, and he was describing this as a terrorist attack because anybody that was felt in any way frightened or terrorised by this, it makes it a terror attack. Is that your interpretation?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, but broadly speaking, yes, that's one of the factors. Terrorism's defined in the Terrorism Act 2000 as being a serious crime, so a murder or serious use of violence, and there's 3 or 4 other serious types of crime, serious damage, for instance, arson or something like that. But then it needs 2 more things to become terrorism. They're obviously standard, ordinary crimes. To become terrorism, it needs to be done either to intimidate the public or influence the government. So obviously the Chief Constable was referring to the intimidating the public sort of side of it there. But it also needs something else as well, and that is it needs to be done to further a political, racial, religious or ideological cause. So there has to be some sort of fundamental reason why it's being done as well to become terrorism. Yeah,
the police as an organisation need to be cautious when they refer to terror attacks, don't they? Because it automatically makes people more anxious. I mean, of course, 3 people being stabbed on New Year's Eve is terrible, but it's very different to then describe it as a terror attack.
It's really difficult because the label terrorism has got a life of its own in the public consciousness and in the media, and it's not used in a particularly precise way. The police will use the label in that legal, precise way based on Section 1 of the Terrorism Act. But then, like I say, once it gets out into the public domain and on social media especially, you have all these heated debates about, oh, you know, it is flagged as terrorism, it's not flagged as terrorism. What matters is that this is a dangerous person for whatever reason. The initial action of the police is to stop that danger, to keep people safe. And we've been lucky again here. We had taser used and it didn't work, the first one, I understand. The second one did. We've got incapacitant spray, but that affects officers as much as it affects the subject. What we need more taser, we need more firearms out there. We're lucky at the moment that we've not had things go.
Mind us where you are as far as tasers are concerned, because there is a debate, isn't there, as to whether or not they should be rolled out further.
Yeah, it varies from force to force. There are a lot more around now than there were. I think, especially with knife crime that we've got going on, we've got bladed implements being used all the time. I think we need pretty much all response units to be equipped with taser, so there's lots of them about. So if one fails, there's another one to have another go, rather than one officer having a taser, and if that doesn't work, they're stuck. But we also need armed response vehicles, far more armed officers available to back up taser units, because if taser fails, where else have you got to go? You're just going to end up with a problem. Now here we saw 6 or 7 brave officers just throw themselves at the knife man and bring him to the ground, and that's sort of the old-fashioned.
Weren't they?
Yeah, they were, and that's pretty much the old-fashioned way. As for sort of armed guards, armed officers at railway stations, perhaps the time has come for that, in the same as we have them at airports, because we know that that's a focus, and it's been a focus for attacks. And even people with mental health issues that for non-serious terrorism sort of reasons, if you like, they just go off and they attack somewhere. They're going to be attractive targets where there are crowds, so maybe we need to think about having armed officers permanently at stations.
And how anxious do we need to be about arming officers and then, as a result, making them a target?
I don't think that's a particularly significant issue. The officers are a target now. We've seen threats and plots where the aim was to grab a police officer off the street and behead them in some cases. So I don't think that them becoming a target because they're armed is a significant factor. It's a factor to be considered, but the other factors, they sort of overwhelm that, really. And we need to think about keeping the public safe. And that's now what's going to be happening with the investigation. He's been detained. He was detained on suspicion of the terrorist offences, the serious offences. Obviously, he's got mental health problems, and the officers have obviously been satisfied that there's sufficient security around his assessment for his mental health problems, and they take precedence. If he had a heart attack whilst he was arrested for a serious crime, obviously we'd sort the heart attack out and then decide where to go with the crime, and that's exactly what's happening here. It doesn't mean the crime won't progress. It will go before the courts if there's sufficient evidence, and then they'll decide how to dispose of it.
Good to talk to you, Peter, as always. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. Thank you.